This episode is brought to you by Google Chrome. You think you know a browser, but Gemini and Chrome? That's new. It can help you with practically anything on the web, like restoring a vintage motorcycle from a 50-page restoration blog, or finally break down that long article you've had open for weeks. Gemini and Chrome is here for it. Ready to make anything online make sense? There's no place like Chrome. Check responses, setup required, compatibility and availability varies, 18+.
Welcome back to No One Told Us, the podcast that tells the truth about parenting and talks about all the stuff you wish you knew before having kids. I'm your host, Rachael Shepard-Ohta, and today I am so excited to speak with Holly Choi, a leader in childhood injury prevention education in North America. Through her platform, Safe Beginnings, Holly educates hundreds of thousands of parents on everything from CPR to car seat safety to the hidden hazards in our homes. She's also a mom of two herself, which makes her super relatable and gives her a real-world perspective on how to balance safety with just everyday parenting. Holly has been featured on Good Morning America, Forbes, and Global News, and today she's here to myth bust, empower, and give us practical tips from everything to safety proofing, to cribs, to car seat safety, and all the things. So we're going to try to get to lots of different things today without the shame. So Holly, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So I just kind of first, I'm curious about how you got into this space. Was it before you had kids? Was it after? And what are the things that made you so passionate about child safety?
You know, it's a complicated question because I used to work in software, which is not really what you would think of as the career transition. But when I had kids, my first daughter at least, I realized the lifestyle of having to travel for work all the time wasn't going to work for me. And I had to kind of have a moment of, how am I going to restructure this so that I can optimize my time with my kids? And becoming self-employed was a way to do that. My sister owned a first aid business already, and she was teaching parents how to keep their babies safe through CPR and choking workshops. And so she suggested that I join her, and I got trained up. And at first it was a nice thing to do because I've always liked being a subject matter expert. I used to be a software trainer at a medical software company. So I loved training people, teaching people, seeing them light up when they feel empowered and they have that aha moment. But it's that shift to baby safety that kind of caught me off guard because I didn't realize how much I was going to love it. So to properly answer your question, where the shift actually happened was in October of 2018. My daughter was about 8 weeks old, and my sister suggested we take the child passenger safety technician training, which is what most people colloquially call car seat techs. And I was basically voluntold to do it, which in hindsight is hilarious if you look at where I've come from there. But I was doing everything wrong with my daughter's car seat.
Oh my God.
Absolutely. Anything you can think of that you could make a mistake with, I made it. And I was so confident that I was using it correctly. And it was that moment of a bit of overwhelming, unfair to myself parenting guilt. Oh my gosh, am I qualified to do this? This is such a simple thing, and how can I get this so wrong? But also a realization of I can't be the only one that's having a hard time with this. And I was the first volunteer in my community, and for the longest time, it was just me by myself checking hundreds of car seats every month. And
wow.
It became just an absolute passion for me to realize, you know what, this is something people really need help with.
Yeah. And just think about how many lives you've probably saved and impacted through all of that education. It's so amazing. And I love that you touched on that too, because I think sometimes people look to us as these quote unquote experts or online experts, and they think we must know everything and that we must never make mistakes with our own kids, or, just we do everything perfectly. And it's so not true. But I think a lot of times people also do feel, like you said, this shame when they realize that they've been doing something maybe not totally safely, or that they totally missed something or didn't know something, and then they just go into this shame and this kind of defensiveness. Do you ever deal with people getting really defensive with you and kind of fighting you about the advice that you give?
Very rarely. Sometimes on the internet, but it's usually just unsolicited troll comments, we all get that. But in person, no. And I think one of the reasons is that I've really, because of how I came across baby safety in that particular context, I've made a very conscious choice to come from a place of empathy and knowing that people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And really starting with like, hey, I made this mistake too. Like you said, it's not just car seats I've made mistakes with. I've made mistakes with all sorts of stuff along the way. But what I always encourage to parents and caregivers is what you do with that new information when you receive it is what matters most. It's
Yeah.
okay that you didn't know it, but now that you know the information, how are you going to move forward? And
Right.
that's a choice that we all have to make. And that's, I think, one of the cool things about safety is that you always have that opportunity to just course correct.
And just do better. Yeah, once you know better, you can do better. So we are going to get into car seat stuff in a little bit, but first I just wanted to kind of ask you generally, what are some of the most common injuries that you see in babies and toddlers, and how do they actually happen?
For babies, one of the most common injuries is falls. And
Mm,
that is a few kind of things that happen in the newborn stage, especially. We see a lot of rolling that people don't anticipate. And it's unfortunately, babies can roll from day one and they don't need to do it with intention. It's
right,
just that their heads are so heavy that
right.
if they have one of their little flailing movements and their head goes, their body goes with it. So we see rolling off the bed, rolling off of change tables. So that elevated surface thing of just, make sure you've always got one hand on them if they're on an elevated surface. But I always joke, you can't fall off the ground. So if you
Right.
just do things on the ground, sometimes
When
you
in
have to get
doubt, put them
over.
on the floor.
Yeah,
It's so funny because even, seasoned moms will make that mistake. And I was actually just talking to one of my good friends the other day. She's like, oh my God, has this ever happened to you? Where she's like, I just put her on the bed. I put her in the middle of the bed. I put a pillow next to her on each side. I just ran to the bathroom and all of a sudden I heard a thump. And I was like, yeah, that has happened to all of us, I think, unfortunately. But if it's a high bed or, like you said, a changing table, it can be pretty serious and dangerous, right? So,
yeah. And the other one I would add to that is carrying them. So
mm,
we try to multitask. And the one place I always suggest people try not to multitask is on the stairs
yeah,
because you need to have a hand free for the railing, which can be challenging when you've got multiples. And I totally recognize that sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
yeah.
But if you can, keep a hand free for the railing because that's another place that we just see a lot of those more serious injuries is from the falls on stairs with the caregiver.
Okay, that makes total sense. What about for toddlers?
For toddlers, they also have falls from climbing, but with them, I'm more concerned about the other things they can get into that can cause bleeding injuries, things that could be potential drowning risks or poisoning risks, because that's that age where they're very oral. So they're trying to put everything in their mouth
Yep.
and they don't necessarily understand poisoning risk or choking risk, and they don't understand sort of the idea of cause and effect. So, if I jump off of that and I land on the corner of the glass coffee table, I don't realize until it's happening that maybe that's going to hurt. So it is important. And I think something a lot of people assume about me the second that they see my work is they go, oh, she must be a helicopter parent. And I am
Mm,
literally the opposite. It's one of those things where you just have to be able to understand what the risks are and mitigate the risks and the things that are hazards we have to avoid. So I like to talk through it as a risk is something where you could get injured. Maybe you'll get injured, but there's a benefit to doing it. So, for example, climbing trees, you might fall, but you're also going to learn about gravity. You're going to develop fine motor skills, social skills, all sorts of things going on when you're out there playing. And we don't want to discourage kids from doing that. Crossing the street, could I get hit by a car? Yeah, if I'm not careful. But I'm also not going to get anywhere if I don't cross the street. So,
mm,
those are risks. A hazard would be something like, "Hey, here's a broken glass bottle. Do you wanna play with it?" There's
right.
no there's no you're not getting a benefit.
Right.
Not buckling a kid into their car seat, there's no benefit in doing that. So,
Mhm.
as long as you can separate them out, and I find that really anxious, overwhelmed postpartum feeling, even all the way through the toddler years of just like, "Oh, I feel like something's gonna go wrong." If you feel that way, stop and try to think, "Is this a risk or is it a hazard?" And if it's a
Mhm.
risk, you can work within your own risk tolerance. But if it's a hazard, just avoid it and don't feel bad about it.
Okay, I love that. And the helicopter thing is so funny too, but if you just know about these like risks versus hazards and you take the necessary precautions to mitigate what you can, you don't have to be a helicopter parent, right? You can just
Correct.
kind of let your kids go. So, okay, I love that. What are some of the hidden hazards, speaking of hazards, in the home that parents don't really often think to childproof or that they just don't even realize are dangerous until it's too late?
There's one really big one that I take very, very seriously. And I think this is especially relevant for your audience because you've got people that are either setting up a nursery or
Mm-hmm.
in a nursery or
Mm-hmm.
transitioning out of a crib into a toddler bed.
Mm-hmm.
And the risk that every single one of us has in our home is furniture that could cause a tip over.
Yeah.
And anchoring your furniture is if you're going to do one baby proofing thing, I don't want it to be your outlets. I don't want it to be I want it to be anchoring your furniture. And it's the way I like to describe it is there are a lot of smaller injuries that sure could be awful or could even potentially land you in the ER. But we get second chances with most of those injuries. With tip over hazards, we're really lucky if we do.
Mm.
And it's something that I don't recommend putting off. Don't wait until a child's mobile. That happens so quickly and so suddenly. And if you forget and it slips your mind because you're so busy and overwhelmed, it's just that one thing that if you can do it today, do it this weekend, whatever you
Yep.
need to do,
Yep.
get it done. Have that peace of mind and move on. And even if you don't have kids, we all benefit from anchored furniture. So
Absolutely. I mean, we live in California, so it's just a very normal thing here because of earthquake.
yeah,
We
same.
just do it. And especially once you have kids, and especially like you said, they're mobile, once they're out of a crib and they're not protected in that way. But even before that, because again, nobody thinks it's going to happen to them. So it's kind of too late once it does. And it really doesn't take that long. I think my husband did all of our furniture in one afternoon, or you could like hire a TaskRabbit or somebody else to come get it. Like you said, if you're alone or if you're overwhelmed or you just can't deal, just hire somebody to come do it. It'll be the best money you ever spend to make sure that furniture can't fall onto your baby. I'll never forget my little sister had a refrigerator fall on her when we were little because she was like hanging on and I don't know if you can even, it was a freestanding fridge, which I guess most people have it like built in now.
Yeah.
But she was like hanging on the handle and it fell on top of her. And it was the scariest thing ever. Like I remember it so clearly because it was so traumatic. And you hear it all the time where kids are climbing on their dressers or things like that. And it just tips over and it can be really, really scary and bad. So I think that's
So
a
in
really good
the
one.
theme of myth busting, something about dressers that I find particularly interesting is a lot of people believe, hey, that dresser's really heavy, so I probably don't need to anchor it.
Right. Because
And
it's filled
that
with
is
stuff. Yeah.
one of the most dangerous myths. And what I say to people who have that, or if you have someone in your life that's saying that to you when you're asking them to anchor the furniture,
Mm.
here's what I want you to do. Go to that piece of furniture, clear everything off of the top of it because it's going to come down. Pull out the top drawers and just put a bit of weight on one of those top drawers. And it's really quite scary how little force it takes to completely change the center of gravity of a dresser like that.
Wow.
But that's what kids do when they climb them. They pull the
Mhm.
drawers out and they use their body weight. And so if you can kind of mimic that, you'll see, oh my gosh, okay, once that center of gravity shifts, especially if the drawers are heavy and have stuff in them, they can tip quite easily. So
Wow.
I always just say, you just start making excuses for it. Just get it done.
Okay, I know I'm not alone in this, but I would love to start a petition to have somebody else be in charge of dinner time. I am so tired of being the one who decides what's for dinner every night, especially when my kids would be perfectly happy eating whatever. I mean, most nights, hunger strikes, I'm exhausted, the kids are not going to eat what I make anyway, so I just really want something that is going to be fully prepared for me, taste delicious, and be really nutritionally dense. So this is where my Factor meals come in. I love how Factor has meals built around anybody's goal, whether that's overall nutrition or more protein. I've been doing a lot more strength training recently, so I really do like the protein, as does my husband, of course. And with Factor, every meal is crafted with functional ingredients too. So there's also colorful veggies for fiber, there's whole foods, healthy fats, and no bad ingredients, no artificial colors or sweeteners, just nutrient-dense, real food that is fresh, never frozen. And the best part is that there are over 100 rotating weekly meals. So you really never get bored. You always get to try something different. It tastes better than takeout. And I love the globally inspired flavors, especially the Mediterranean and Asian ones. There's always something new to look forward to. They also have new ready-to-eat salads with vibrant ingredients like miso edamame, and a lot of add-ons that you can add to kind of round out your nutrition. So I love that option for summertime when it's just too hot to turn on your oven. The best part is that it's ready in 2 minutes because Factor shops, preps, cooks, and delivers straight to your door. So you have every other moment of your night to spend doing the things you love. So I love Factor meals. You should try them too. I have a special code for you if you head to factormeals.com/no-one-told-us-50 off and use code no-one-told-us-50 off to get 50% off and free daily greens per box with new subscriptions only while supplies last until September 27th, 2026. See website for more details.
Okay, I love that. While we're on the topic of bedrooms or kids' bedrooms, is there anything else that you see as like a really common hazard that parents just might not be aware of, like kind of the things that are not so obvious?
Cords. And I think it's getting a little bit better these days. I think because we are getting fancier baby monitors that have like cord control systems, like the Nanit, for example. If you have the stand, it's all controlled in there. And also things like cordless blinds becoming a standard. But if you live in an older home or you're renting and you can't change your window treatments, or you've got this monitor and this cord's here, you don't know where to put it, that's where we need to find a solution. So for blind cords, there are things called cord cleats, which basically just look like a little wind up thing that you would anchor a boat to. You stick it on the wall next to the window, and you can either get screw-in ones or adhesive ones. You just wrap the excess cord around it just so it's not hanging down. Huge strangulation risk, and unfortunately, it's one of the more common injuries for toddlers. And then with the monitor cords, that one's hard, and I get that because people really want to get like that bird's eye view. It's hard to do that without cable management, but a really inexpensive way to do that and doesn't really do any damage to the wall if you're going to just use like a hairdryer to take it off are these things called cable runways. They're basically like these little cable management strips that are adhesive, and they are little channels that you adhere to the wall. And then it has a cover that snaps over top. So you just fit the cord in all the way up the wall and just snap these little covers over top. You can cut them with scissors, so you don't need special tools. And that way you can just keep all of that cord contained. But we want to keep anything like that 3 feet away from their sleep space, and stuff like blind cords, you want that out of reach, period.
Yeah, exactly. I know a lot of people are like kind of resistant to childproofing because they think it's going to ruin the aesthetic of the room or it's going to look like an eyesore. But actually, I find it's the opposite. We have a bunch of those like cord covers in my daughter's room too. And it actually makes it all look so much more neat and clean and just like tucked away. So highly recommend, if you're one of those people that cares about that kind of thing, do it because it makes it look better and it's so much safer. Okay, anything else? Because I want to move on to car seats after the break. Anything else about bedrooms or nurseries that you would like parents to keep in mind, like besides the obvious of covering the outlets?
I would just say always try to think one step ahead. So, especially when they're in their toddler bed, kids don't have what I like to call imaginary boundaries. So, we might understand that once the door is closed, we're supposed to stay in there and that's our bedroom. So, you probably don't go wander your friend's house overnight if you sleep over at a friend's house, right? But toddlers are curious. They want to know what's going on. They want to come find you. They're wondering what everyone else is doing. Now they've got this freedom. So, just think, okay, if they do make a break for it and they get out of their room, and let's say we're totally sleeping through it, what's the next thing that they're going to hit? Is it the stairs? Is it a bathroom? Just always try to have one more layer between them and that hazard so that they're not immediately into a hazard area. I never recommend locking children in their rooms because I find that kind of traumatic. And
that was going to be my next question. You read my mind because this is actually so controversial. I don't know if you get pushback when you talk about that or if you just avoid talking about that. But every time I say to parents, there are so many other ways to keep your child safe in their room. Please don't lock them in. I get so much pushback. It's like a very controversial take, I guess, that we're not supposed to be locking them in there. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm curious if you have more to say about alternatives.
Yes. So there's a few reasons that you don't want to do that. One is obviously like fire safety. We don't want to have any barriers that could be an issue. But along the same lines, we are 100% safer if we sleep with our doors shut.
Yes, exactly.
It slows fire significantly. And that can be the difference. Even if you're like, oh, but how am I going to get to my baby in that fire? Trust me, if you both have your doors closed and the fire's in between you, you'd rather have them rescued from the outside. That being said, let's not go down the intrusive thought.
Right, I know, it's so hard.
But just please sleep with your doors closed. If they open their door, you can always get a pressure-mounted gate or even a hardware-mounted gate that can fit in the door frame. that you can swing open. And that will deter a lot of kids. Of course, there's kids that will still try to defeat that, or they'll find something to drag over and make a ladder and get out, right? So it's not always going to work, but even just putting like a little bell on their door so that
Yeah.
when they open it, you hear it.
Or even an alarm, like you can get an alarm for the door for $20 and
Mhm.
that will be loud enough to wake you up if you're really concerned about them leaving.
Correct. And having a monitor that you can talk two ways through to just be like, hey, like I can see you're up, but right now
Back
it's
to bed.
bedtime.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of ways to encourage them to stay in the room, and eventually we get it. But I think it's just really important to make sure that they have access to you if they
Mhm.
need to get access to you and feel that they can get that help. So yeah, I'm never a fan of locking a child in. I know it's sometimes seems like the convenient option or you're desperate, but
I know.
for me that's just something that I don't recommend.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that you said let them get access to you and like leave that and what's the word? Just leave your own access open with your closed door, but maybe not locked. Of course not locked, but closed. Because most of the time they're not wanting to just go on adventures around the house. They're just wanting to come get you or come into your bed.
All
Like
for you. Yeah.
yeah, parents ask me this all the time when they're getting ready to transition into a toddler bed. They're like, "Well, won't they try to go to the kitchen and like use knives?" I'm like, "Probably not." Like if
If
they're
that's a
leaving
concern, put a gate there.
exactly. I'm like, if you're worried about that, then gates for sure. But most of the time, if they do leave at all, which most don't, but if they do leave at all, they're just trying to come get you. So just make that easier for them and do what you need to do to keep them safe in between points A and B. But yeah, no locking, please. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about car seat safety. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back with Holly. And you mentioned at the top of the episode a little bit about car seats and how, as a new mom, you felt like you had made so many mistakes and it really kind of pushed you to learn and to educate other parents. Car seat safety, I will say, is one thing that I still to this day, mom of 8 years, don't feel 100% confident in. It's kind of the thing that I've given to my husband. Like, you have to own this. You have to learn all the things, read the manuals, update them when they need updates. I just can't. It's like my blind spot as a parent. I just can't get it. So I'm curious, what are some of like the biggest, I guess, blind spots you see with parents using car seats? What are kind of the most common mistakes people are making?
So the place I always like to start is there a car seat that's best for people?
Yeah.
And we have a very standard across the industry saying for that the best car seat is the one that fits your budget, fits your vehicle, fits your child, and that you can use correctly every single time. That's going to look
Perfect.
different for everyone,
Yep.
especially vehicles. And if you've got a tall partner in the car and you've got multiple kids in the back, it's always going to look different. So no, if it meets standards and you are using it correctly, so it's installed correctly and the child's harnessed correctly, your child is going to be okay in a survivable crash. So as
Okay.
long as we are using that correctly, that car seat is going to do its job.
And how do you
And
know, sorry to interrupt, but just
no,
how do you know if it meets standards? Like, is it even allowed to be sold if it doesn't meet standards? Because I know car seats, like with sleep products, for example, there's tons of sleep products on the market that are not actually safe or that shouldn't be used, but they're still allowed to sell them. So it makes it really hard. Are car seats the same or are they different?
this is a great consumer product safety question.
Mm-hmm.
So there are two types of products mainly in North America. You have a regulated product and an unregulated product. So a regulated product would be things like cribs, car seats, high chairs. Those all have to meet safety standards, baby gates, but other things don't. Baby proofing products outside of gates, they don't have to meet a standard, which seems wild for a safety product, but car seats do. The thing that is seeping into that unregulated territory with car seats is the accessories.
Right.
So you have to be really careful with accessories. We don't recommend purchasing anything additional for your car seat that didn't already come with it,
Okay.
unless it is specifically made by that manufacturer, because it's all tested together.
Right. So like an insert, for example. So like we have the Kleck Foon seats and they have like the infant insert. So like that's something you put in it, but it's made for it by the company.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. The infant thingy, they call it. They have cute
Yes,
names.
I know. I
Everything.
love their name. I'm like, that's the perfect name for this thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I find that it's with car seats, it's because it's so personal that it gets
Yeah.
so complicated.
Yeah.
One of the main things that I see is that we have those two categories, right? We have, are you using it correctly with install or with the child actually being put into the seat? So harnessed or with a seatbelt and a booster down the road. And for installs, I see installs that are just too loose. is probably the main install mistake that I see, or the angle is wrong for a new baby. It's not
Mm.
supportive of their airway enough, so we have to adjust
Mhm.
that. And then in terms of harnessing mistakes, I think that is probably the top mistake I see, period. And I think a lot of it, unfortunately, and full disclosure for anyone that's listening, is that I'm from Canada. So our healthcare system is quite different compared to
Yeah.
the US.
Yeah.
I love our healthcare system to be transparent about that. But sometimes you get advice from a well-intentioned healthcare provider that doesn't actually have training, or their training's really out of date.
Yeah.
And I think that can go for any profession, right? You can sometimes get really old feeding advice or sleep advice, right? Where
Yeah.
it's like, oh, we don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Um, we see a lot of mistakes actually come out of hospitals. It's a hard thing to manage. So I will say, for anyone that's expecting, get your car seat checked by a car seat technician as soon as you can, close to the 37-week-ish mark. And if you don't make it there and you're suddenly, whoops, that appointment, well, that was too late and now I'm suddenly in labor.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as you can. And anytime you make a transition, it's good to go back and get just an extra set of eyes on it. And it's an easy thing to do. It's an accessible thing to do. You can typically find it either free or extremely low cost in your community. So if you're in the US, you can go to safekids.org/events or cert.safekids.org. Both of those can get you to either a clinic or an individual car seat technician that can help you. And for anyone listening over in Canada, you can go to cpsac.org/find-a-tech, and you can find another technician in your community as well.
Okay, amazing.
Personally, when I do car seats, I operate as a volunteer just to keep that accessible to people, because
That's
it's one
amazing.
of those things where we need to make sure people have access to that information. And
Yeah.
I'm really, one of the things I really love about our technician network, specifically in Canada, and I'm boasting a bit because I'm the vice president of our organization in Canada. So I really do
Amazing.
I love all of our members, but all of our members through the Child Passenger Safety Association of Canada, I would say out of all of them, probably a good 95% of us go to that course on our own free will, not voluntold by a job, which is a little bit different because in the US, it's a lot of like firefighters and police
Right.
officers and et cetera.
Right. Yep.
It's mostly just people that wanna volunteer in their community and help people out,
So
and so you get a
incredible.
lot of passionate, awesome people that just wanna help, so please reach out.
Yeah, take
This
advantage. That's wonderful. So, what about this is another one of those like controversial things that people get all feisty about online is the I guess debate, which it shouldn't be a debate, but the debate about rear facing versus forward facing. So, what are your guidelines for when it's time to flip your child?
So those have changed over the years. So up until about 2018, the American Academy of Pediatrics said, "Get till 2, and if you get to 2, gold star, flip them around." They redacted that in 2018, and they said, as long as your child still fits a rear-facing seat, so we're not just talking about like an infant seat, but
Hmm.
a larger convertible car seat that will later forward face, or all-in-one car seat, whatever you have.
Hmm.
If you can keep them in that rear-facing mode, do it as long as you can. And the reason for that is it just the crash forces when they're rear-facing just better support their head, neck, and spine. The crash forces are moved away from their body. And the way I like to think about it is, imagine, try to picture someone doing like the Heimlich maneuver, like the choking maneuver on you, and the way that you would lurch forward toward your own knees in that really aggressive motion. That's how kids move when they're forward facing in a crash. Is their whole top, like their torso, their head all moves forward. Their heads are so heavy because they're bobbleheads at that age. Their head is so
Hmm.
much larger proportionately than ours as adults. And it just takes a quarter-inch of stretch in that spinal column to have a really devastating injury. And it's something that while their bones are ossifying, everything is still so soft
Hmm.
and malleable there. The longer you can keep them rear facing, great. That being said, have I kept my kids rear facing until they hit the limits on their seats? No, I have not. And that might surprise some people. I have really small kids.
Mm.
My daughter is 7.5 in a few weeks. She weighs 41 pounds.
Oh my God, that is
So I
tiny.
have like
I have a kid the same age and he's almost 80 pounds.
my 10-year-old's about 50 pounds. And so it's one of those things where it looks really different for a lot of kids.
Yeah, it's not one size fits
And
all.
there is kind of this idea of diminishing returns of once their bodies do have that ossification and their proportions start to change and they're, 4, 5, 6, like they are okay physically to be forward facing. And I don't want anyone to hear that message of rear facing and is great and keep doing it forever and ever and ever and then think I'm a bad parent because
Right.
I need to turn them around in my car for XYZ reason,
Right.
whether you have another kid joining or whatever it happens to be. So if they're kind of at that point where they're like 3, 4, 5, and you need to turn them around, they're going to be okay. Yes, we'll get benefits if they're rear facing, but I don't want you to think that you're a bad parent by turning them around. You're absolutely
Right.
not. They're going to be fine. We just
Right.
need to use the car seat correctly and install it correctly, and it's going to do
Right.
its job.
Okay. So there aren't any like benefits to turning them earlier. I guess that's my question always is when parents start to talk about, oh, why are they not forward facing yet? I'm like, well, why should they be? Right? Are there any benefits to moving them earlier?
No,
Okay.
there are not. A common myth I hear around that is motion sickness.
Right.
A lot of caregivers think that if they turn them forward, that they will not be motion sick. And as someone who is part of the motion sickness club for life,
No.
I'll tell you that that's not what is actually causing it. What typically causes motion sickness is the lack of a view of the horizon. And so we often think, oh, well, for us as adults, oh, what if I sit up in the passenger seat instead of the back seat? The reason that became a thing is because you can see the horizon better in the front seat. Obviously, we
Okay.
can't put kids in the front seat.
Right.
But when they're rear facing, they can often see out the back window. And so they might just need to sit in a seat that's a little bit higher.
Right.
Or if you can in your vehicle, if you can take the head restraint off that's behind
Right.
that car seat, you might be able to just give them a nice clear view of the horizon. And
Put them in the middle, maybe. Sometimes that's like a better view.
there's all sorts of ways to make that happen.
Interesting.
I would try that first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. We're going to take one more quick break. And when we come back, we're going to wrap up with talking a little bit about water safety. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back with Holly, and this has been such a helpful conversation already. We are recording this in the summertime, so top of mind for me is water safety right now. There's also been a lot going on in like the influencer community around drownings and things like that. Lots of people are talking about it. So I would love if you could just give us a few of your like quick tips. I know that there's so much that goes into water safety, and again, it's one of those really personal things that people can get really fired up about. But what are some of the different like layers of protection that you like to recommend for keeping kids safe around water?
That is exactly it. Layers of protection. So at the core level, you can have swimming lessons and it can be a little bit controversial in terms of when you start them. Advocates of water safety often suggest as early as 6 months. There are infant swim rescue lessons, commonly referred to as ISR, and that is designed to teach a baby to, literally a baby, to flip from front to back and float as self-rescue mechanism, which sounds scary, but if you watch videos of it, it's really, really cool. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends 12 months and cites that earlier lessons are often more focused around water play. So I think it depends on what kind of stream of lesson you're taking. If you're going to take traditional swimming lessons at a public facility, then I would probably go closer to the 12 months so that you're getting a proper lesson and not just
Playtime.
singing it in your arms.
Yeah.
Because one of the things too is a really great resource is an account on the internet on Instagram called Silas Project.
Yes, it's a
And
great one.
yeah, it's a mom who lost her son named Silas. They moved into a home during COVID and they couldn't get a baby proofer out. And he escaped through a pet door and got into the pool. And her son passed away. And so she is a huge advocate for get them those lessons early, but make sure that the pool's not fun until they have some life-saving skills. So that's kind of, if you really want to focus on having that rescue and that like safety around the water, I would say check out Silas Project because she's got some great resources on there. Outside of that, then we have to look at other things. If you've got a pool or water at home, make sure that you have a pool fence. There are baby proofers across the country that are certified in properly installing pool fences. You can go to iafcs.org, the International Association for Child Safety, and they have a find a pool fencer option there. So if you need a pool fence. The other one that I have really strong feelings about is life jackets. And I think that this is one that's really tough for people. And I don't want to be like a huge bummer with this, but I always like to come back to if people remember what happened in the summer of 2020 with the actress Naya Rivera. She was in a lake in California and her son was with her and they went swimming. And the thing about lakes, and up here in the Vancouver area, we've got lakes that on a hot summer day, the middle of it can still be really, really cold. And we're a completely temperate climate. We get snow maybe once a year. Like we're the tropics of Canada. So it's misleading because you can be out there on a hot day getting a sunburn and still have your legs go numb from the cold of a lake in the middle. So there are huge risks with undercurrents and things that you have to have a life jacket on if you're on open water.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just for the kids, it's for the adults too. Because yes, we want our kids to live, but our kids also want us to live. And I think that's
Yeah.
the really important thing that we need to take away from that specific story and not forget the lesson of that story. One of the things that I have on my website is a blog post about selecting a life jacket because there's different types of life jackets and how to select an appropriate one for not just the size of your child, but the activity that you're doing.
Okay, that is super helpful. Yeah, because it's funny. I've used life jackets for my kids. We've used puddle jumpers. Like, there's so many different things that are marketed to parents, and I think parents are really confused because they hear things like, "Don't ever use a puddle jumper. Don't ever use a life jacket," because then they'll get too confident in the water and they'll try to go in without it. And we had a scare like that with my daughter, where we were letting her use a life jacket at a pool, and then we took it off for lunch. She went back in, and it could have been really, really bad. So I
Yeah.
guess it's helpful for you to say, like, it depends on the activity.
It definitely does. And the thing about puddle jumpers and life jackets is that they will hold you in a certain position in the water. We want kids to be able to get flat on their back. So a life
Yeah.
jacket is really for like we're out boating on open water
Mm-hmm.
and we need to be able to pull someone out of the water. They've got a strap behind the neck on their life jacket that we
Right.
can
That's what
pull
it's
them out with.
for. Yeah.
But if they're just in the water, that upright position is not natural for floating and it's not natural for swimming. And so it can create a false sense of security as well for not just the child, but also for us as adults. The one more thing I would add about the pool is please, it's so hard. It's so hard, I know. Try to avoid getting bathing suits that are like blue and green and
Yes. Oh my God.
dark.
I'm so glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, get a bright, really, really bright bathing suit, red, yellow. Sometimes I get a nasty comment on my content about red bathing suits and that sharks are attracted to them. And I don't know why
Oh
we're
my
swimming
God.
with sharks, but
Well, for the
just don't
pool,
do
I
that
think it's
either.
fine. No,
But
it's so true. I remember finding this graphic, maybe it was through you, years ago, and I share it every single summer because it's true. And it's so hard to find, especially for boys, it's so hard to find suits that aren't like blues, greens, even like whites. So now I always look for like orange, red, yellow
and
when
there are a
possible.
lot of companies that are starting to come out with them, and a lot of them are small businesses. So if you can find one local to you, definitely support a small business. But what you want to look for when you're shopping, if you're Googling online, is something called a high vis swimsuit for kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they will often come in bright colors like pink, red, yellow. But yeah, those colors like blue, green, they just disappear. White, they just disappear under the water. And you can have a kid that's only maybe 5 or 6 feet into the pool underneath. But if they are swimming down, they completely disappear. Just try to find something bright if you can. And it's easier for you to spot them if they're running around on the pool deck.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. Okay, so the layers of protection you talked about were having like a pool fence. What do you think about even having alarms and things like that?
Alarms are helpful, but I would never replace a pool fence with alarms, which I think is
Okay.
often a mistake.
Okay.
You
So
want to
both
have
or
them.
at least the pool fence.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so, so much. I know that this is a lot and it can be scary, especially for those of us who have intrusive thoughts about these things, but it's so important to just be empowered with information so you can make the best choices for your family to keep everybody safe. You have so much more information about all of the stuff we talked about over on your Instagram page and on your website and blog. Is there anything else that you'd recommend for parents to check out?
Yeah, I would say that my Instagram is really the best place to learn more about all of the stuff that we do. We also have online CPR and choking workshops for parents. And along the line of water safety, if you pull a child out of the water, the thing that you do is CPR.
Yeah.
CPR, actually, some of the best outcomes on CPR are people that have been immediately pulled from the water because it gets the water out of the lungs. And that's how we resolve that.
That's what you want. Yeah.
Knowing CPR is not just a skill that we should all have regardless, but it's also a really important skill for water safety. So definitely check that out.
Okay, perfect. I will link those workshops in the show notes as well. Holly, thank you so much for joining. The last question I have for you is more of a personal one because you're a mom. And it's, what is something that no one told you about parenting that you wish you'd known?
Well, I don't know if this is a helpful answer.
It's okay.
But what I often say to people when they're having a hard time is I would like to tell you that it will get better, but it will just get different.
Mm-hmm.
You adapt and it gets different. And I think every stage is its own challenge. And you're never going to master it. You're going to make mistakes. I think what's most important, what I've learned as a parent, is repair. If you make a mistake, especially if it's with your child and you feel like, oh, I shouldn't have said that to them, or, oh, I was a bit harsh, you can always repair it.
Yeah.
Come back and if you learn something new about safety and you're like, oh, I feel bad that I was doing that, make the change.
Mm-hmm.
You can always admit that something was wrong and move forward. And I think that's the most important place to reflect.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's such a good, perfect advice. I love that. Thank you so much for joining us, Holly. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Rachael.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.